In Chapter 6, we're going to look at how probability forms the foundation for statistical inference. So instead of just calculating probabilities for events, we're now going to look at these random variables. And these random variables are going to create probability distributions, and that is how we will look at probabilities from a more applicable form to statistics. So we start with this random variable, which is just a numerical variable whose value depends on the outcome of a chance experiment. And we talked about those chance experiments in Chapter 5. We're just talking about some event, some experiment, where we don't know what's going to happen from trial to trial. With these random variables, we are going to associate a numerical value with each outcome. So that's going to be a little bit different than what we've had before, where with probability, the events did not necessarily have to be a numerical description. But with random variables, we do need them to follow a numerical set of values. Now, these numerical values can be either discrete or continuous. And we talked about that in Chapter 1, but a discrete variable is just that random variable that possible values are isolated points on a number line. So, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something that you can count. Now, a continuous variable is going to be a random variable where the possible values are all of the points in some interval. So here, things like time, that could be measured with all sorts of different values. Something like a height, where depending on how good of a scale you had or how good of a measuring tape you had, you could get all sorts of different values there. So continuous variables just mean that you can have lots of different values within an interval. And when we find the probability of these continuous variables, we're going to have to look at an entire interval instead of just a single point like we'll be able to do in the discrete variables. Some of the examples in your textbook of a discrete variable would be things like the number of customers purchasing a digital book at the bookstore. Okay, you're counting the number of customers, and so that's going to be a count. That's going to be a discrete random variable. If you were looking at some sort of game like a card game, tic-tac-toe, some kind of game where you were looking to see how many trials that it took in order for the game to come out as a winner. If you're playing best out of 5 or something like that, here you're counting how many games there are. And so that would also be a discrete variable because it would be a specific count. On the other hand, if you're looking at something like pressure, or something like weight, there you can have all sorts of different values up to the point that the scale that you have, the instrument that you have, can measure them. And so in the example, they were looking at an engineering stress test, and they were looking to see how much pressure can be applied until the bar snaps. And with this, it can take any value from 0 to 1. And in that case, that's going to be a continuous variable because you can end up with any value in that particular interval.